Hi guys, this is Marius from Trademate, and today I'm going to give you a walkthrough of how the Trademate core product works and how to get the most out of it. The first thing you'll see is the dashboard, which gives you an overview of how you're doing. You had fund growth, total profit, average ROI per bet, number of trades. It also gives you some stats on your turnover and how many trades you currently have open, and a breakdown of how you're performing at the different bookmakers. The main difference between the Trademate Core product and the Pro version is that in the Pro version, you have everything that's included in the core, in addition to access to the Asian or sharp bookmakers. These bookmakers are IBC Bet, which you can see here, SBO Bet, and Bet ISN. IBC Bet also has a couple of clones, 12Bet, DAFA and Mansion 88. So all those bookmakers have the same odds, but IBC is the main one. In addition to access to the sharp bookmakers, you also have access to the Trademate analytics tool. You can find these bookmakers by going to My Bookmakers in the top right corner. I'm going to show you first how to add a new bookmaker, and if you're already seen it in the core walkthrough, you can go ahead and skip this. So the sharps have already been added on this account, and I don't want to delete those, so I'll just show you how to add expect, and it's the same thing. You choose the bookmaker you want to add, you select your starting balance and your currency, and then you click add bookmaker, and then now gets added to the list. Okay, another important aspect is your bet sizing. If you click the top right corner and on profile, you'll be taken to this screen where you can choose how much risk you want to take. Personally, I use low risk 30%. We're using something called the Kelly criterion, which is a proportional staking strategy that takes into account the edge you're getting, the odds, and also your total bankroll size to calculate which proportion of your bankroll to stake at the different bets. Select your risk and then go ahead and save the change. It will be set to low risk or 30% of the Kelly as a default. Next, let's head over to the trade feed and set up a filter for the sharp books only. Okay, so this is a trade feed. It gives you an overview of all the edges that exist, and you can then set up different presets or filters to filter out which edges appear in the trade feed. So let's create a new filter for sharps only. And next, let's include the sharp bookies, SBO, ISN, and IBC. There we go. And let's just keep it at all sports for now, and for all different odds types. On the sharp books, the average ROI is lower than on the softs. So we want to be even more careful with our odds range here. So I'll go ahead and cap that at 3. I'll set my edge percentage at 1 and I'll keep it open. Since the average ROI is lower on the sharps than the softs, the variance will have a larger impact on how you're doing. So we want to take measures to reduce the variance we have. We already adjusted the stake sizing to 30%. We've set the odds range from 1.2 to 3. Next, we're going to set the time before kickoff from 0 to 2 hours. So if you place a bet, let's say 5 hours before kickoff. In those 5 hours until the game kicks off, a lot of new information can enter the market. The odds will swing. So it could swing in your favor and it could swing out of your favor. But what is certain is that a long time before kickoff, the odds will be a lot more volatile than sub 1 hour before kickoff, when the lineouts and everything are out there. At this point, the markets will be more settled. The majority of the bettors will have taken up their positions on the game, and since the odds on the sharp is mainly market driven, overall the market will be more stable. There will be higher liquidity in the market, and thus the odds that is currently offered on the game already takes into consideration the information possessed by the guys that make up the market. It is possible to bet on good edges a long time before kickoff. but know that it is a high risk that you're taking. So in general, we try to stick to betting as close to kickoff as possible. Also, on the sharps, the majority of trades that will show up will be on all leagues. So we'll turn off the recommended leagues filter here. Otherwise, we probably won't get in as much volume. And I still want to keep to only one trade per game, which is another measure you can take to reduce your overall variance. And finally, let's go ahead and add this preset. Okay, so now we have our new preset set up here, which currently shows one edge on Senegal versus Sudan under 20s, with a -1 handicap on Senegal at 196 on SBO. So let's head over to Sport Market to see if we can find that edge. In general, it is good to use a brokerage when you're trading on the chart books because first of all, you only need one account to trade on all of them. And second, it will save you time just having access to all of them with a couple of clicks. So let's get over here and have a look at the Senegal versus Sudan game. All right, so the edge was on Asian handicap -1 at Senegal. Look for the edge here at SBO, which is at 1.96. We can see that the total liquidity here, Pinnacle being $1,700 and SBO being $600. So it's a rather low liquidity market, but the game starts in 27 minutes. So hopefully the odds will remain relatively stable until the game kicks off. Right, so let's go ahead and place that bet. Yeah, so we went ahead and placed the bet on SBO. Now let's just wait while the order is being processed. And as we can see here in the bottom, placing the bet was successful. So next we'll head over to Trademate again. We'll register that trade, and that's it. After you registered the trade, you can head over to My Trades, and as you can see here, there's an overview of the current trades that we have that are open. So here you can find the Senegal game, which we just placed the bet on. There are a couple of alternatives to Sport Market, such as Asian Connect and Premium Tradings. Personally, I don't have any experience with anything besides Sport Market, but if you want to check those out, then of course you can go ahead to do so and select the offer which you think is the best for you. Next, let's have a look at the analytics page. So I'm currently using Tobias's account as he has more trades registered on the sharps than me. I currently have a lot of soft bookies to go, so I'm not trading much at the sharps at all. I think I only have like 1 or 2 bets there. One of them was when I decided to hedge out on a game between Ural versus Rostov, where there was a huge edge on Ural winning. I decided to turn it into a sure win by also placing a bet on Rostov on the Asian handicap there to make a guaranteed profit. That trade ended up going in, so I think it was almost a 60% edge. I wrote a blog post about it, which you can find on Trademate. I won less money than what I would have done if I just stuck to my original trade. This is one of the unique aspects of having access to the pro version of Trademate. You get access to the constructive analysis tool. It gives you a more in-detail breakdown of your stats. So here, for instance, can see the difference between the EV that comes from your edge placed versus the EV that comes from your closing edge. So as we can see here, Tobias has been running incredibly well overall, really way above his EV. And his closing edge is only at 1.3%. So he really should have a look into his stats and see if we can find out where those bad closings are coming from in order to increase that, because long term crazy levels of profit it would probably not keep up. So first let's have a look at the stats breakdown. What we can see here is the total turnover, total profits. We can see the difference between the average ROI and a flat ROI. So if Tobias had used a flat stakes, he would have made a 6.3% ROI per trade placed, while his actual ROI per trade is at 9.5%. Tobias has made an additional 3.2% profit thanks to his stake sizing so far. You can also see the average odds placed and the average to closing odds, in addition to a breakdown of the hit rate. So Tobias has been getting in more than what could be expected. What you also can see is the average time before kickoff, and it's always good to have both a lower number here and also a lower closing edge standard deviation. Okay, so what you can see here is a breakdown of the true closing odds versus the theoretical hit rate. The odds is equal to the inverse of the probability. If you have 2 in odds, you can take 1 divided by 2, you get 0.5, which means 50%. So if you get 2 in odds of Manchester United winning at home in their next game, that means that it's a 50% probability that they will win. Thus we can expect 50% of the bets we place at 2 in odds to end up being wins, and 50% of them to end up being losses. And as we can see here, Tobias is running pretty much spot on in this odds interval. So he should be winning 50% of his 2 in odds bets, and he is winning 50% of his 2 in odds bets. So that's just perfect right there. While, for instance, if we move over and have a look at how he's doing in the odds range of 1.75, then he should be winning 57.1% of his bets here, but his actual hit rate is only 51.3%. So in this odds range, Tobias is running below EV, while if we go over here to the 2.25 in odds range, then his actual hit rate is 47.7%, while his theoretical hit rate is 44.4%. So here he's running better than expected. As the sample size increases, we can expect these bubbles for the different odds ranges to converge towards the blue line. So what we can expect if there was an infinite large sample size is that the actual hit rate would be equal to the theoretical hit rate, as we can see in the odds range of 2. For some of the larger odds ranges, we can see that, for instance, here he's running way above EV on the odds range of 3.25, while he hasn't won any of his bets above 4.25. Now, one thing that you want to avoid, especially if you're trading on the sharps where the average ROI is already lower per bet than in the softs, is to place too many bets on the higher odds ranges. Quite simply because if you place a bet at a game that has 10 in odds, you can only expect that bet to go in 1 out of every 10 times. So there's a 10% probability of that particular outcome turning into a win. So in order to have an actual hit rate of 10%, you're gonna need to have a very large amount of bets in the odds range of 10 for that variance to even out. And doing so, if you start out with a losing streak, can really hurt your bankroll and impede your ability to recover, especially if you're running with a rather small bankroll. In an ideal world where you had an infinite bankroll, I just go ahead and do that, but since that's not the case for the majority of us, it's better to reduce the odds range to reduce the variance. Next, I'll show you how to use the constructive analysis tool to dig a bit more into the stats. So in the bottom left corner, there's an icon here which you can click. This brings you up a filtering option so that we can dig into different subsets. So let's have a look at how Tobias is performing on the sharps overall. And let's just keep everything else open just to see the overall performance on the sharps. Okay, so his average closing is 1%, which is quite good on the sharps. So I guess that it's on the soft books where Tobias should be doing better in terms of the closing edge. Now his average ROI is at 4.8%, which is excellent over a sample size of 400 bets at the sharp book. Like Tobias is both choosing some good bets since he's got a 1% closing edge, and also running pretty well since he has an average ROI that's almost 5x his EV. As we also can see from the stats, his average time before kickoff is only 1 hour on the sharps, while it was 2 hours in general, so he's being more picky about which trades he chooses when he's trading on the sharps. Again, what we're seeing in the theoretical hit rate breakdown, it's that the area where he has the largest sample sizes, that's the areas where the bubbles are the closest to the theoretical hit rate. So in the odds range of 2, he's running slightly below expected with a hit rate of 48.9% and a theoretical hit rate of 50%, but it's all still pretty close. Now let's dig into SBO alone just to have a look at how he's doing there. I think that's where. Okay, so this is Tobias's SBO stats, and as we can see here, his average odds placed is around 2. So he's been even more picky with his odds range on the sharps, and here his flat ROI is actually higher than his average ROI, and this typically indicates that some of his larger bets have been losing, and as we can see here in the odds range of 1.5, he's only won 50% of his trades, while he could expect to win 66.7, so that's cost him a net of minus $185. He's also running slightly below the theoretical hit rate here. However, it appears that he's had a couple of the larger bets in this odds range going in, which has still given him a positive net result. You can also zoom in here. That's also true here. And then you can have a look at the different individual games to see how they were performing. You can compare the edge you placed at versus the closing edge, and to sort of see if you spot any patterns of games or leagues where the odds suddenly move out of your favor, or where they move heavily into your favor. There, the other day, it was announced that LeBron James wasn't starting for Cavaliers, which caused the Cavaliers to move from being a favorite to becoming the underdog. So the guys who got in at Chicago Bulls in that game made a huge value bet at a terrific edge. You can also go ahead and reset the zoom to move back out. Further, one can, for instance, look at the performance at different times before kickoff. So we can, for instance, look at how Tobias is performing over 1 hour on the sharps, and he's still been doing pretty well here, but as we can see, his closing edge has declined, so that indicates that what he's doing would not be as profitable in the long run, but Tobias has been pretty lucky so far. An important caveat to add is that once you start digging really into the stats, also your sample size will become smaller. So although it can give you a good indication of where both your leagues are at and also which subsets are the most profitable, it is important not to draw too certain conclusions from a limited sample size. So just keep that in mind once you're using the analytics tool, that you can be more certain the larger your sample size is.